Good morning. Welcome to Witnessing Faith with Bishop Dewane. I'm Karen Barry Schwartz, Director of Communications for the Diocese of Venice in Florida. Witnessing Faith with Bishop Dewane can be heard here on Relevant Radio on 1410 AM and 106.7 FM in Fort Myers and 1660 AM and 93.3 FM in Naples on the last Friday of every month at 8:30 AM or anytime at dioceseofvenice.org/our bishop. Your Excellency, Bishop Dewane, welcome back to Relevant Radio.
Karen, thanks very much. A pleasure to be with you and our listeners.
Bishop, I hope you had a lovely Christmas.
I did. Santa Claus was good.
What a beautiful time of year in the church. Today, December 26th, is the feast of St. Stephen, the first martyr. Perhaps you'd like to begin today with a prayer for the feast of St. Stephen.
All right, let's do that. I have a traditional prayer for the feast of St. Stephen the Martyr, and it's a heartfelt expression, really, of gratitude and intercession. It acknowledges the example that this first Christian martyr really gave us all and the divine assistance that needs to be sought in various ways in our life. So let's begin in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. O glorious Saint Stephen, you were the first to lay down your life for the gospel of Christ. Give us the courage to boldly proclaim our faith in the face of opposition and suffering. Help us to be filled with the same charity and forgiveness that you showed, even to those who persecuted you. May your example inspire us to live lives of service, love, and sacrifice. Pray for us that we may be faithful witnesses of Christ's love. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop. Bishop, on the topic of martyrs, I just want to mention to our listeners, we've talked about on a previous show, the martyrs of La Florida.
Yes, we did.
Yes,
we did.
we're hoping will be canonized soon. Antonio Nija and 58 companions are being considered for sainthood here in Florida.
Sometimes that whole process takes a little while in Rome. A
Yes.
bureaucracy works a
Well, at
little
least
slow.
we've reached that stage. It is in Rome, and we will pray for their sainthood. Christmas time, of course, is a beautiful time of year in the church. But Bishop, as we've also talked about, the holidays can be a stressful time too. So I'm wondering if you know who is the saint of mental health.
I'll explain how I know it. The saint is Saint Dymphna, not a common name that we would hear in people today. But going about doing confirmations, I usually ask, what saint have you chosen? Tell me something about that saint. Or I say to them, why did you choose that saint? And if a young lady has chosen Dymphna, it's going to be a personal story you get. They're going to talk about they have some struggles in the area of mental health or my health in general. And I understand what they're referring to, but they may not verbalize it. Some do. And then they'll say Saint Dymphna, and they'll explain that why they've chosen her, and that's an example for them. And they want to set about to be healthy in every dimension of their life. So it's always a very kind of enlightening, brief, because the conversation, there's not a lot of time, but it's Saint Dymphna.
Interesting. And I'm asking, of course, because the holidays can be a stressful time, and mental health is, of course, a priority. And also, Bishop, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, you all have recently issued an urgent message about the importance of mental health and really placed a renewed emphasis on the bishop's mental health initiative called Healing and Hope. So we're going to talk about that more today and about the importance of mental health. And Bishop Dewane and I are blessed today to be joined by two guests. Dr. Eric Collins, a psychiatrist and practicing Catholic, who has a practice called Emmaus Health Partners out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, but who also works in Florida and other states through a program called My Catholic Doctor, which is available online at mycatholicdoctor.com. We're also joined by Cassandra Cunningham, who is Chief Operating Officer for Catholic Charities here in the Diocese of Venice. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Great to be here.
Oh, thank you. And I want to welcome both of you. Cassandra and I know each other. Doctor, we may not know each other as well, but certainly I have a great deal of respect of the work that you do.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Bishop, let's begin with you. Can you share with us a little bit about the U.S. Bishop's thoughts regarding this emphasis and renewed emphasis on mental health?
And like you said it correctly, it's a renewed emphasis, maybe about 2 years ago, and it might even be a little bit longer. The National Catholic Mental Health Campaign was started by the USCCB. It talked about that every family knows somebody, but maybe they don't talk about it. We can talk about the person who has the bad heart, but they don't talk about the mental illness. And the whole idea of that campaign was to get an initiative rolling. And the conference came up, as you rightly say, with healing and hope. And it's a Catholic response, really, to the mental health situation that we face in our country. And it's grave. It's an illness that's not spoken of near as much as it should be. So we can get this concept out there and see that when there's a difficulty, we have to get more awareness out there on this issue. Also, to eliminate some of the stigmas around mental health illness. Seek creative ways, I think, to journey with those who struggle. And the other, of course, is pray. All of our parishes include those in their petition prayers about those struggling with mental health issues. And we have to bring a raised awareness, not just for the other person, we have to do it ourselves of what's going on. And certainly the personal and community accomplishment of this, but also the personal and the community dimension of mental health. Yes, individuals are plagued by it, but it's throughout our communities. It's not just a single one on, I got to take care of that. No, it has a way of reflecting itself in a much broader way. But I think it's more important today that, we have to be caring for others who would need that help, but we call upon specialists like Cassandra and Dr. Collins. So I'd like to hear what our experts have to say on this today.
Yes, Dr. Collins, you are a psychiatrist, a lifelong practicing Catholic. As I mentioned in your introduction, you work with an online program available to all called mycatholicdoctor.com. You offer psychiatric help grounded in a Catholic anthropology, you told me. Can you share with our listeners what does that mean exactly?
Well, that's a very deep question, which is exactly the kind of question I like to speak about. Essentially, what a Catholic anthropology of the human person means is that we are made in the image and likeness of God. And this is something we could talk about for a very long time. But briefly, I want to highlight two different ramifications of this. One is that we are children of God and we are made to share in his love. And love can have a lot of different forms and there can be different aspects to it. But I want to highlight here an aspect of love that the ancient Greeks might refer to as agape. Love meaning to will the good of another person. And so when we're meant to share in the love that God gives us, we're meant to accept the grace that he gives when he wills the good for us. We're also meant to will the good of others in our lives. Second point I also want to mention is that everyone has God given dignity that cannot be diminished. It cannot be taken away by anything that that person does or anything that anyone else does. And so everyone always deserves to be treated with the utmost respect.
I love that. Thank you. That's an excellent description of as you said, a complicated question. Bishop, would you like to add anything to that?
The comment you made about the image and likeness of God, I think oftentimes we say that, and it's sometimes back in the seminary when seminarians were sitting around have theological discussions. What exactly the image and likeness mean, since we all look different and none of us have ever seen God? So what are we on to? But I think we have to understand he's talking about the soul. That image and likeness of God is where that resides. Yes, in other ways in our life, to prayer and give respect to God because he is our creator, but also that dimension that image and likeness lies within the soul. And we have to know that anyone suffering from mental illness or facing mental health challenges, we have to emphasize the point to anyone that they are in that image and likeness of God. And they need to be proud of who they are. And yes, we want to help them, whatever their shortcoming is. Dr. Collins, what are some of the most common issues that you see facing people today that you interact with?
I'd say that generally today people are more connected in many ways. Technology has advanced. It allows us to be in contact with someone on the other side of the world. But despite these ways in which we're more connected, I see a lot of people who are also more lonely than ever before. These connections, they don't always lead to connections on a deeper level, and people have difficulty connecting on some of those deeper issues. A lot of times you hear the phrase, if you want to avoid confrontation or controversy, avoid talking about politics and religion. I want to look at that a little bit differently. And I don't think it's the topics themselves, but rather our approach in dialoguing with each other about this. What I'm seeing on an individual level, but also on a societal level, is an increase in polarization of thought. People are less and less inclined to try to see the perspectives of other people. And what that can lead to is something that we call a cognitive distortion, or rather a distortion of what I call objective truth.
Interesting. Dr. Collins, when we spoke earlier, you said that a lot of people don't know God to be a loving father and a loving God, and maybe haven't ever been treated with love by others. And just knowing that they are loved by God can be healing in itself.
Absolutely, because when you don't have that experience with to draw from, it's hard to imagine anyone being in that loving way, much less a God who you can't always directly interact with.
I know you have a practice in Michigan, but you're available to others in other states, including Florida, through mycatholicdoctor.com. I know that is not your program, but you are one of about 300 clinicians who operate on that platform. Can you tell us a little bit about mycatholicdoctor.com and how that works?
Yeah, I'd love to speak on that. So, for 2,000 years, Catholic Church has led the world in healthcare, continuing the healing ministry of Jesus Christ. In more recent decades, many large healthcare organizations have become increasingly secular, and certain services like natural family planning or other pro life healthcare services have been hard to come by and hard to get paid for by third party payers like insurance. But My Catholic Doctor is a network of independent clinicians who want to practice medicine through Catholic anthropology. And taking this right from the website because I think it's a great way of phrasing it. But My Catholic Doctor is a refuge for faithful Catholic clinicians who want to practice independently and with the voice of their faith. So, Karen, like you were saying, it's primarily a telehealth organization, but there are a few locations around the country that do offer in person services. For a lot of people, especially younger people, telehealth makes getting started in healthcare easier rather than making an appointment in a physical location and having to go in person and all the logistics that that entails. So, with 300 clinicians nationwide, there's a lot of availability, and more clinicians are joining My Catholic Doctor all the time.
I have young adult daughters, so I know the in-person thing with anything, it seems difficult. Everything's text or phone is even a stretch, but that's how kids operate today. I do wanna add to what Dr. Collins you're saying, the services of mycatholicdoctor.com are available 24/7, 365 days a year, and also, you all treat people of any faith. It's not just for Catholics, it is by Catholics, as is Catholic Charities, but not necessarily just for Catholics. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We are Catholic, of course, but we are committed to serving people of all faiths with dignity and respect.
You are listening to Witnessing Faith with Bishop Duane on Relevant Radio. I'm Karen Barry Schwartz, Director of Communications for the Diocese of Venice in Florida. Witnessing Faith with Bishop Duane can be heard anytime at relevantradio.com and on the last Friday of each month at 8:30 a.m. on 1410 a.m. and 106.7 FM in Fort Myers and 1660 a.m. and 93.3 FM in Naples or anytime at dioceseofvenice.org/ourbishop. Bishop, I know our listeners this morning are also, of course, going to want to hear from Cassandra Cunningham, who joins us today and is Chief Operating Officer of Catholic Charities, Diocese of Venice. Cassandra, thank you again for joining us and being patient as we chat with Dr. Collins.
You know, a request I had from priests over and over again for years, almost since I arrived here, is we need some mental health counseling. The parishioner comes in, Father realizes it's out of his depth. It's not just a spiritual kind of thing. And he's licensed for spiritual directives and things, but not as a counselor, not as a mental health therapist. And it's dangerous to move out into that domain and think you can do it when you don't have the training. So when Cassandra was hired here at Catholic Charities for the Diocese of Venice, I thought, this is great. Now we can respond to it. And I know that any number of the priests have seen the program. They know that the number is out there. They're very happy now that they do have someone to refer people to. And Cassandra, you kind of oversee that program. So that's all I want to say. It's great to have you with us. Tell us about what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bishop. So, there's actually a national mental health crisis that we have seen here at Catholic Charities, and it affects all demographics, such as young adults, families, and the underserved individuals struggling with housing and food instability, or those who are facing social stressors. So, Catholic Charities has a mission and responsibility to respond, offering compassionate, holistic care grounded in Catholic values. Catholic Charities works to reduce the stigma, as you mentioned before, and barriers to access of healthcare, encouraging people to seek help and making sure that it is available and affordable.
Cassandra, I know you said when we were talking earlier that research that Catholic Charities has tapped into indicates that approximately 1 in 5 adults have experienced some type of mental illness just in the past year. That's like 60 million people in the country or something.
Exactly, Karen. Thank you for mentioning that. So, Catholic Charities acts as a bridge connecting mental health resources with trauma informed care. In fact, last year, Catholic Charities has provided 4,528 therapy sessions in the last year across all 10 counties in the Diocese of Venice, serving low income families, seniors, youth, migrants, mothers, children, and more. The type of services Catholic Charities offers include individual therapy, group therapy, school based therapy, and telehealth therapy across the 10 counties. Catholic Charities is currently working on getting DCF certified to do substance abuse therapy so we can expand our services and bring therapists who are qualified in that space to serve all parishes and all of our programs in general.
I just think it's so helpful. 4,500, over
That's
4,500 people.
therapy sessions.
That is just amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, some of them are repeat visits and things, but still, the number of people that change that is in a year's time. That's great.
Fantastic. DCF certified is Department of Children and Families. That's a certification for
Correct.
substance abuse counseling. Okay.
That's required for the state of Florida in
I
order to
see.
do substance
Okay.
abuse
And then
therapy.
you
Yep.
you can do that. And I know there are some amazing case studies. Do you have a case study you can kind of anonymously share with us of someone you've helped?
Absolutely. I would like to really highlight one of our programs that's very popular. It's called Our Mother's House. That's here local in Venice. So that's a 21 unit transitional housing program for homeless mothers with children under the age of 3. And so what Catholic Charities does is provides in-house therapy services and telehealth services. We offer life skill classes, finance classes, childcare classes, case management weekly to make sure we're staying on track and meeting our goals. And we have just introduced art therapy. So we're super excited about that. And to your point, I'll give you a little bit of a story. So, Jamie, a young single mother who struggled with substance abuse, and she was also a victim of domestic violence relationship. Jamie entered the program at Our Mother's House seeking stability, freedom from toxic environments, and just a fresh start after facing legal challenges. So, with the support of Our Mother's House team, she began rebuilding her life from the ground up, one goal, one day, one step at a time. She saw Dr. Myra McPherson, who's one of our therapists who comes on site for 24 months. So, it's a 2 year transitional program. Jamie's dedication and work ethic quickly set her apart. She committed to living a clean and sober life, and with resilience and courage, she launched her own residential cleaning business while participating in the program. She worked tirelessly, often balancing long hours, parenting, and her personal growth journey with a smile and unwavering commitment. Over time, her consistency really paid off. She completed every goal in her case plan, fulfilled all legal obligations, and was officially released from probation. Her savings grew, her confidence flourished, and her dream of stability became a reality. On November 1st, 2025, this year, Jamie graduated from Our Mother's House, a true milestone she earned through her hard work, accountability, and faith, most importantly. She has since secured her own apartment on the island of Venice and created a safe, happy, and stable home for her little boy. Jamie's journey really reminds us of what's possible when strength meets opportunity. She's living proof that with hope, hard work, and community support, transformation is not just a dream, but it's a promise fulfilled. So, since we've brought on our new director and have implemented a mandatory counseling service, I'm going to share some statistics with you guys.
Great.
So now 100% of our mothers have secured employment, 92% have increased wages, have advanced their positions, and 92% of those mothers are on track to exit the program in safe and permanent housing. Also, 87% of those mothers are enrolled or have completed a vocational certification, and then 50% have enrolled in degree programs. It
Amazing.
speaks for itself, right? So, all mothers currently have an average increased savings by $1,200. So, that really shows how stability and just structure can really build someone who has experienced trauma in their life and has come to a structured environment and created hope, created
Mhm.
possibility, and created a future of opportunities for themselves and their child.
I think you touch on something, Cassandra. Sometimes people just don't know how to get started, how to reach out to, and how to do it then. Our Mother's House is there. It's been there for a number of years. It's a program of Catholic Charities. To see this doubling up, one program augmenting another, and you gave us the stats the changes it makes in the lives of these mothers. And one can only imagine how exponentially that impacts the child who's growing up and who is at a very delicate age and can sense a lot of things going wrong, can't do too much about it. Well, now he's not sensing, or she is not sensing so much that might be going wrong in mom's life. Mom's so much happier. And I just think that's probably a great thing. Tell us, how do you get somebody started on this, though?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Catholic Charities offers telehealth and in person counseling services, as mentioned, to support those in need of overcoming life's challenges. So, our therapists are trained to help with a range of issues, including depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, substance abuse and addictive behaviors, relationship struggles, autism spectrum, grief, loss, conduct disorders. And so anyone can call Catholic Charities Behavioral Health Line at 239-455-2655. Catholic Charities offers telehealth therapy across all 10 counties, as mentioned before. Our therapists also do school therapy in 21 schools in Lee County and 31 schools in Collier County. In person visits are available in Naples, Bonita Springs, and Sarasota office. And you can visit our website, ccdov.org, to find those locations.
Fantastic. Cassandra, you were talking about our mother's house, and I know a couple of years ago, Bishop, we were doing something with our mother's house, and there was another amazing case study of a young woman who also had suffered from a domestic violence situation with a young child. And I think going back to Dr. Collins' point, she did not have the experience of having experienced love by someone in her life or seeing God as being on her side and being a loving God. And she did experience that and understand that through counseling at our mother's house. And it really turned her whole life around. She educated, she got a degree in finance, I think in accounting, and she got a great job out of state making like $90,000 a year. And she was a very young girl. It was a great success story, but it all came from that feeling of feeling valued by others and by God. And really changed her life, as you pointed out, the other case study and so many others. It's so important. Of course, our Mother's House is one of just many programs that the Catholic Charities offers, including the helpline that Cassandra just said.
Our mother's house is a good program and always has been,
Mhm.
but this added dimension. Let's face it, so much domestic violence. That's the situation that at least the women who come to us at that stage, that's what they've experienced. And how to address that to give them the courage, you are more
Mhm.
than what people tell you you are. And I think we have to keep doing that. And sometimes it's hard for somebody to hear that after all those instances, those situations, but they have to hear it. Cassandra, you prove they do, they can, and they will. We have to slow down sometimes, just take the time to communicate that effectively so it touches that mental health component that they're kind of missing. I think
Doctor,
it's so important.
yes, it is so important. And Dr. Collins, I'd like to throw another question to you. And I'm just going to throw in a quote here I had jotted down from the late Pope Francis, who said on the topic of mental health that caring for others is not just a skilled job, but a real mission. And now is the time to step into this mission. So you are a skilled clinician. Obviously, we know how you can help people, but how can other people? How can lay people, how can lay Catholic help others who in their families or their friends or their community who may be struggling with mental health? What can we do to help?
A few different things. The first thing that comes to mind is stay connected. Generally speaking, good mental health involves good social connections. So, looking after the people in your life, checking in on them from time to time, and if you notice something seems to be off with someone, start a conversation about it. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe you asking about them is step number one in terms of them improving their problem. The second thing is to, be vigilant in your own life. If you notice things like anxiety or depression seeming to creep up, to pay attention to those and seek help if needed. You can be proactive in terms of managing your own mental health. There's a number of different treatment strategies. Of course, we can't go into everything today, but several good lifestyle measures can go a long way. Making sure you're getting good sleep, staying on top of healthy eating patterns, getting regular exercise, all those can go a very long way into helping you maintain your own wellness.
That's excellent advice. So doing what our mothers told us maybe.
Ooh, yeah.
And
No matter how old we are, we have to hear it.
yes. Dr. Collins, what about we hear so much today in the media about bullying. That seems to be quite a large issue. Of course, bullies have been around forever, but It seems more prevalent today with the online bullying, especially. What can parents do or kids do to protect themselves against that horrible trauma that can be caused by that?
One of the strategies is going back to what I was saying, connection. Stay in regular connection with your children. Ask about these things specifically, because if sometimes if you don't ask about it, you may not hear. Another thing too is to just be mindful of what your kids are doing online. Be smart about it. There's some internet activities are probably better to engage in than others, and be very mindful of social media use. Yeah, just have an ongoing dialogue with your children about those things.
Excellent advice. Bishop, you had mentioned the importance of prayer, of course, earlier, praying for those who suffer and struggle with mental health. I think I read that the Vatican offers a specific mental health prayer network now.
They do. And it's really the Pope's worldwide prayer network in this regard. So praying for mental health is a worldwide endeavor that the Vatican has undertaken. And the Pope, in what he calls the Worldwide Prayer Network, it's a Vatican pontifical society, if you would want to say, with a global mission of mobilizing Catholics toward prayer and action to the challenges facing humanity and the challenges facing the mission of the church. Many of the monthly prayer intentions of this network revolve around issues important to mental health and our overall wellness. So I think it shows the Vatican, the church in the global sense, doesn't have its head in the sand at all. It knows it's looking at this current issue and what can the church do? And we need to pray to Saint Dymphna that she intercede on our behalf, or to Saint Stephen, whose feast day we celebrate today, to intervene, because sometimes mental health might challenge an individual. They might thinking about life isn't worth it. And we all have a role to play in there. Do I know that person personally? Maybe I do, but I certainly can pray for them whether I know them or not. And so I think prayer has a deep role, and that's what the Holy Father is trying to underline for us all.
Thank you for sharing that, Bishop. And also to circle back around to where we started on this topic, the USCCB's Healing and Hope Initiative, Mental Health Initiative, two other things about that program I want to stress. You and the US bishops advocate for effective and compassionate public policy around mental health and wellness, which of course goes a long way to removing stigmas and making it easier for people to get help. And another thing that I know the US bishops stress is if you need help, get help, or if you know someone who you think needs help, help them to get help. Do not be deterred by the stigma, yourself or for others. The bishops really emphasize to get help if you feel you need it. And don't be afraid to do that. And of course, Bishop has reminded us how the importance of prayer. And please pray for all those who struggle with mental health, certainly those in your community who you know who do. So pray and do get help if you need it. You can certainly join that global prayer family that Bishop spoke about, the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network, online at www.popesprayer.va. There are several initiatives on there, including the mental health initiative Bishop told us about. We're just about out of time today. And do recall, if you or someone you love is struggling, know that you are not alone and you do not have to carry this burden by yourself. Reach out to one of the Catholic Charities Diocese of Venice programs through Catholic Charities Behavioral Health Line, which Cassandra mentioned earlier is 239-455-2655. Or in person, there are offices here in the Diocese of Venice in Bonita Springs or Naples. You can find more out about that on Catholic Charities website, which is Catholic Charities
ccdov.org.
ccdov.org. Or speak with Dr. Eric Collins or one of the more than 300 therapists and specialists available at mycatholicdoctor.com. Thank you for listening. We will be back at the end of January, so stay tuned. Good morning and God bless. You have been listening to Witnessing Faith with Bishop Dewane. I'm Karen Barry Schwartz, Director of Communications for the Diocese of Venice in Florida. Witnessing Faith with Bishop Dewane can be heard here on Relevant Radio on 1410 AM and 106.7 FM in Fort Myers, and 1660 AM and 93.3 FM in Naples on the last Friday of every month at 8:30 a.m. or anytime at dioceseofvenice.org/ourbishop.